one of the things that our international audience may not be used to. In many countries, the lead story is not on the upper right the way it is in most American newspapers. And Peter, what does it feel like to have a story there versus anywhere else on the page?
Well, it's interesting. It's changed over the years. You know, the old way of doing things as I grew up was that story you're looking at right now had to be a hard news story. It had to be something happened, boom, boom, right? It could be an investigative, but it had to have a hard news lead. These days we're a lot more flexible. These days you can have a news analysis in that slot. You can have something that has more of a story that kind of backs into its subject a little bit. The old format, the old rules are kind of being reinvented here as we reinvent the print paper.
And there's your byline. I haven't seen this story yet. The last act of the Trump drama: rage, denial, and what's the last word? And
retribution.
What I didn't understand, Peter, is he's appointing people for just like to that Pentagon overseer board, like for just a few weeks. What is the point of that? Just to cause trouble, right?
He's just appointing them for his second term. He's just getting ready for the next 4 years. No, I think, look, some of these appointments are about, resume enhancement, right? Giving people something that they would like to brag about in later life. Some of it's maybe about putting in some last-minute policy changes, trying to lock in things before they leave office. Some of it may be about replacing people who have angered other people, right? This is a chance to take a pound of flesh from different parts of the government that have angered the president or angered people around the president. Some of these may be things that he's not personally even involved with, but people around him are taking advantage of the moment. That happens too. But you're right, he has not stopped in these last 70 days between the election and the inauguration day of putting in a lot of appointments and firing people as he sees fit.
Naomi says a
Peter
program, wonderful guests shared with friends, including Tim G. Anderson, a former New York Times editor. And folks, we want to remind everyone that at 10 a.m. Eastern, in about 35 minutes or so, we're going to do a tribute to Betsy Wade, one of the pioneering women at the New York Times. She passed away this week, and we're going to have some of her colleagues and friends join us for an informal tribute that we will be doing. So please stay tuned for that. Neil, anything you want to show us?
Peter, if you don't mind, just a quick question. Your piece that's on A1 today, it's described as a White House memo. For our viewers, can you explain what that means? What does that signal to the reader in terms of the content or the approach of the article?
Well, it's meant to say that this is, we're kind of stepping back a little bit here. It's not going to be that hard news story we just talked about. It's not going to be blank happened yesterday. It's meant to be sort of more of a slice of something from inside the White House. Look, it can be analytical. It can be a colorful feature. It can be atmospheric. The idea is meant to say, okay, from those of us who are inside the bubble, in effect, here's how things look. And in today's piece, we're trying to look at Trump's final days and this sort of like Shakespearean quality of the king in the palace, lashing out at his enemies and angry at his fate and denying the reality around him and forcing others to deny the reality around them as well. And so I did something I hadn't done with too many articles in the past. I actually quoted a Shakespeare scholar, which is not the usual source for a White House story, but it actually seemed to fit in this case. In this case, Jeffrey Wilson from Harvard actually wrote a book called Shakespeare and Trump. So it actually seemed to be appropriate, and he was very smart and thoughtful about his analysis.
We were told that we need to ask you about Shakespeare.
Yeah. Well, there are a few references in here because, Jeffrey Wilson says basically what we're seeing now is sort of like classic Act 5 behavior. At the sort of the tail end of the play when the monarch is surrounded by enemies and lashing out, and that's sort of the quality. For the first 3 to 4 weeks after the election, we almost never saw the president. He was in seclusion. He cleared out his public schedule. He wasn't talking. Until the rally last night, we hadn't seen him give an extended public appearance. And when he did talk, it was through Twitter, and it was this sort of angry bursts of grievance and false claims. And I think that we were trying to sort of take the reader inside this this period of this particular presidency as it's facing its end in a stew of resentment and fantasy.
So you got the word rage in there. She got the word crazy in her headline. Susan did, or at least the editors did. In as we try to understand, make sense of these last few weeks, as you were saying. I just want to put up this comment from Ron Thomas, who's one of our sponsors and a former guest himself. Greetings from Dubai. Love your interviews on television. So you're both on TV a lot. We'll want to ask Susan about that especially, and great guests.